Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of the Channel 42. So, what we got going on, guys? What's in the news? What's happening in the world?
Well, there was recently just on Twitter, I think it was Raymond Hendricks, our friend from the Netherlands. I saw him post about this little thing on Kickstarter. It's called the Tamagotchi, or the Flipper Zero Tamagotchi for hackers. And basically,
Yeah, you sent me that. Yeah,
yeah. So I don't know if you had a chance to check it out or see what's all in it, but it looks like it's intended kind of for more of the security people to test and emulate and play around with different radio technologies, but built right into the Tamagotchi itself. This little flipper, it has the ability to interface with RFID card systems, with NFC, Bluetooth low energy, so the BLE stuff. A lot of cool technology, all built into a small little handheld device.
so it's like a Kickstarter project, right?
Yeah, that's right. It is. Yeah, and I think at least I think you were checking this out earlier. Just while we're recording, there's 41 hours left to order one of these guys.
Yeah, I think we're going to miss that by the time we release our video. It's a Kickstarter project, but it's going to be available afterwards, isn't it? I assume.
I would assume so. Yes.
Well, I hope so. Or if not, maybe I'll buy two on the Kickstarter and sell one for like $10,000 or something like that. Maybe
Well,
not.
that's a good one.
I will. I'll tell you what I'll do is I will put a short link on this video once we pass it through post edit, and so approximately now you should see something go across the screen. Let's see if I can tie that together. Right, that'd be perfect. So I'll put a link on the screen to this website. I'll put that on so people can go and take a look. And I think I need to order mine as well, actually, Troy. Thanks for the reminder, dude. I'll order mine. So it does.
Looks like a cool thing. Yeah.
It does a lot of stuff, right? It's kind of. It looks like a little. It does look like a little Tamagotchi toy, but it does. I think on the video it shows you a guy messing with a what do you call it? The
All those little gates, those bar gates, whatever.
Bar gates, yeah, yeah. I saw also it does BLE. I saw, like you said, RFID and things. There's a lot of functionality coming out in the initial release, and I'm assuming they're going to keep going with it.
Yeah, it looks like it's open source. They're releasing an SDK to go along with it. It takes micro SD cards, so you can change the images. A small LCD display, so you get a little bit of visual indicator of what's going on. And then the controls, it's almost like a little joystick, like a thumb pad type thing. So it's fairly simple, it looks like, to navigate and interface with. Tons of flexibility, it looks like, going forward. So it can really take off and add more functionality to it as things progress. It also has modules that you can add on later for additional support.
Do you know what the Kickstarter goal was?
No. See if I can dig that up.
Oh, it says they wanted 60,000. Oh, it just changed. If I'm reading it correctly, it says that they got 4 million. So I think they've achieved their goal, right?
Yeah.
4 million is pledged of 60,000 goal. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, man.
They've blown their goal out of the park.
Yeah. Well, if you look at what it does, I'm just looking at it now. It's got a chip in it that does multiple frequencies below 1 gig, so it does a lot of sub 1 gig stuff, which I don't think anyone has experimented with before, have they? That I'm aware of.
A lot of the RFID stuff is all sub 1 gig, or a lot of it.
That's what I'm saying. So I've never seen any other tools that do a lot of sub 1 gig.
Yeah, I was years ago. I used to you'd order those little electronic packages, and you have to build your own little handheld or your own little homebrew antennas, where you'd wrap a bunch of copper coil together and tape it up, and then try make your antenna so that you could scan and read NFC or the RFID communication, nice. to capture the security badge when it gets sensed by a reader. But it was kind of kludgy and it was big and bulky, and it only worked with RFID, whereas this little Tamagotchi device not only does it support RFID, but also NFC and BLE, so a whole bunch of different radio technologies. And it's handheld form factor, convenient case. So it looks really slick. And it's, again, the SDK that's being published with it allows for a lot of flexibility going forward.
Well, once they launch it and we've made our pledges and they arrive, maybe a future episode could be on this little device and the fun and games we've had with it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thank you, sir. Do you have any other news, exciting things going on? WTF is coming up, I believe, in soon. What are we, about a month away from it?
Yeah, about a month. Yeah. So last week of September is when it gets going. Yeah, so they have the boot camps before the conference, and then the conference itself kicks off.
I was using that as a bit of a segue there. The boot camps. Okay. What have you heard about the new boot camps, Troy? Which one are you sitting on?
I'm sitting on the connectivity boot camp.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, that's going to be all about IoT, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be very interesting, I think. So let me take another segue from that then and talk about today's main topic and link into it. The concept of certification. And well, I suppose once you mention certification, the options are, do you pay to attend an official class or do you self-study? I suppose you could also sit an unofficial class. When I say unofficial, you can find somebody on the internet teaching something for something. I personally stay away from, well, Cisco's got the word gray training. It's non-authorized. So you've got authorized, non-authorized, and self-study. Now, so far this year, I've signed up for understanding nuclear physics, how to learn to play the piano, and a little bit about some other things, something about advanced hacking and cross-site scripting and things. And I've got all these sitting in my, $10 a piece internet account. I've sat some of these $10 a piece online things, and I think I must have bought about 50 of them over the last couple of years, and I've only actually paid for some of them. Some of them are a very small number, are very, very good. And most of them are a $10 course on something, right? It's like, maybe it's somebody talking on really bad video or just talking really slowly or badly with a strange accent, and slides are coming up and there's no explanation. So let me ask you then first, Troy, what do you think about official versus unofficial versus self-study? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so most of the studying that I've done in the past has been self-study. And so to make that more efficient and more useful, often I have to wait until there's material available to self-study, right? So if you look at a lot of the early Cisco wireless training for the CCIE wireless, there wasn't a lot of published formal kind of self-study documentation for that. So it's basically reading through a lot of their web-based documentation, their design guides, published notices that they had, and just reading through all that. But it wasn't really in an organized, easy to digest kind of matter or form or material. Whereas if you look at the CWP program, they have their books that you can order, you could read through that, you can study that. It's a little bit more organized and self-contained. I also found that self-study to be more cost-effective. Well, not necessarily cost-effective, but it fell within my price range for what I was looking to do, because I funded a lot of my own studying. If you have the corporation, or if you have the money that you want behind it, instructor-led training, the official study training, I think it's fantastic. Just kind of depends what model you're fitting for. So I did a lot of self-study training. It worked well for me. That's I guess my preference is if you can and you can afford it, instructor-led training's probably the ideal way to go if you get a good instructor. Some of the instructors, you know, you could have just read a book and it would have been the same. But if you get a great instructor and you can carve out that 1 week, I think it's fantastic training. But it also matters what level you're going for. You know, look at a lot of the CCI boot camps. If you take an instructor-led CCI boot camp, you're drinking from the fire hose in that, you know, that 1 or that 2 week training window. So at the CCI level, I often viewed, and I recommend to people that the instructor-led classes, not to start with that. It's more like finishing school. It's that final test mark to see how close are you, or how ready do you think you are for the exam. If you sit one of those classes, hopefully it fine tunes your knowledge, that you're not hearing a lot of things for the first time during that class, but it gives you tips and techniques to improve your command line speeds, faster approaches to answering the questions and getting the configuration tasks accomplished. But I wouldn't start with instructor-led training for that. So that's kind of my take on different levels. I don't think there's absolutely one right way or the only way to do things. It just kind of depends on your evolution, your training style, your budget, and your timeline to accomplish your goals.
Now, that was an awesome answer, because there were about 7 answers there, Troy. Before I go to Troy, I want to do Mr. Sam Clements proud now, and I want to say it really comes down to it depends, right? It depends. And it depends on your budget. If you can't afford to do a class, maybe you can afford to buy a book. But now, full disclosure here, I work for a training company. We do training and consultancy, so it's in my interest for y'all to come back and do training with us. But I genuinely believe the best way you can learn a new subject is to attend a training class, okay? Because it teaches you what you need to know. Now, maybe you can't afford that because they're not cheap. Whatever training you're doing, they're not cheap. You can get some good stuff on the online courses, but again, you know, if someone offers you a car, hey, I got a BMW for sale for $300, you're going to think, is this like 7 Series, fresh off the shop floor, or is it like a 30-year-old rust bucket? Now, for $300, it's going to be a rust bucket. Now, I'm not saying that all are the same, but some of the online stuff isn't as good as it could be. If you can afford it, I would agree 100%. Do the official training, because it's the most up-to-date, remember. CWNP, Cisco, all the other training companies, CompTIA, they prepare, well, actually, let me take a point with this. They prepare the classes for the exam. Cisco no longer does that. Cisco have now stated that coming to class isn't your preparation for the exam. You must do other work as well. But as far as I'm concerned, CWNP and CompTIA, the idea is when you come to class and you pay attention and you do the labs, it prepares you for the exam. Now, the second point you raised, I might come back to later, I think, Troy, I agree with you 100%. If you're doing advanced classes like CCIE, you want to learn as much as you can beforehand and then go to finishing school. A lot of people go to the CCIE boot camp and they've never seen BGP before or 802.1x EAP or something, and you don't want to be going down a rabbit hole of learning something at that class. Now, if it's something specific, absolutely. But I agree with you 100%. If you go to one of the advanced boot camps, the more you learn beforehand, the better. However, I will say to students, if they say, what can I do to prepare to come to the CWSP class or CWDP class? I'm like, nothing. Come to class. Because if you spend a week reading, you're going to have that much knowledge, and it may mislead you. I'd rather you come to class so I can teach you, and then spend a week reading, and you'll read the same material, and you'll get, like, my arms are off the scale here. You'll get so much more of it. So what I do say, though, is if you want to read something and you come to CWDP or CWAP or CWSP, make sure you've reread the CWNA book. Yeah. So let me then, Tor, same question. What do you think about instructor-led, authorized, unauthorized, and self-study? Before I do say that, one more thing I want to say is I think you've got to be very disciplined to do self-study. Would you guys agree? Self-study doesn't work for everybody. If you're new at a subject, self-study may not be the best. So,
Yeah, I totally agree on your comment on self-study. When I'm going to kind of ingest or get some new knowledge, new technology knowledge, I prefer to attend a class. One of the things that it gives me is actually it helps me focus, because I am really bad at oh, there's a squirrel, and then I'm sidetracking and doing other stuff when I'm doing self-study, especially when I have to read stuff. I should say that I've been a long time teacher, trainer. So of course I'm used to read content, understand it, and be able to kind of explain how it works and formulate for the students. But for myself, attending a class is that's the number one, because it helps me focus. My approach when we're dealing with certification is to attend the class, learn the new technology, all the specific things. I've been sitting a Hyperflex class this week. I have no clue about what it is, but now it's a bit more clear. And the next step for me doing that is actually to get some hands on. Yeah. So I'm really for what works for me is sit the class, learn the theoretical stuff, and I'm not reading the week after. I'm building the setup, yeah. And then I'm trying to break it, see what I could do with it, see if what the vendor or CWNP has stated really is true, and they usually are. But I would like to have it verified, because that actually makes my synapses getting thicker, so I remember things and understand it. And as you said, Troy, once I've done that, then I'll go for the boot camp, because then I'm at a level, and student would be at a level where they can formulate qualified questions instead of just sitting and listening. So it's kind of a sparring instead of just receiving, and it's so much better to wait with the boot camp until you have a proper level of knowledge. Yes, I agree on that.
So I like one thing you said then, Tor. You said about new. So let me take my experience. I've been doing wireless for the longest time. Let's say that I had to go and learn a new vendor's wireless product. I don't think it would do me any harm whatsoever to read up on that product, and I could probably do that self-study. I wouldn't need to attend a class. But I was just thinking, what about learning the piano? I've never played the piano. If I was to do a self-study class on playing the piano, there would be noise coming out. Now, just spending 1 hour with a teacher, he or she would be like, hey, no, don't do that. Don't put your fingers up like this. Put your hands like this. A little bit of knowledge like that could save me months of wasted time, because, this is how I play the piano. No. Rest, relax, play the piano with that type of knowledge. Is if it's something you're new at, that sort of knowledge is invaluable, I feel, when you go on a class. And there's another scenario as well. What if I was going to do an outdoor bridge product? Okay, I could probably do it as self-study, because I know the rules of wireless. I know 6 decibel, double the distance, you lose 6 decibels. I know Wi-Fi basics, but I don't know how to climb up a pole and attach a bridge. So I think there's 3 levels here. If you kind of know the product, and you know the subject, and it's a variation of, I think self-study is easy for everybody. But if it's a brand new subject, I think it's invaluable to attend with an expert, whether it's an hour with a piano teacher or a couple of days with an instructor. And even if you sit in the middle one, where you know a lot of the product, but it's a new type of implementation. An example we talked about earlier, what about mesh? We all know Wi-Fi, but when you start working with mesh, each vendor has its own unique way of doing mesh. So sure, you could self-study the mesh, but it's still going to be faster to gain the knowledge if you spend a little bit of time on the mesh class. Does that make sense to everybody? What do you think, Troy? What do you think?
I think it makes some sense. I just want to counter it just to make the conversation a little more interesting. If there's no easily available material that helps guide you or walk you through that process on self-study, then absolutely having someone sit by your side, having that mentor or that instructor kind of guide you through those early on steps, that becomes critical to the learning efficiency. But once a training program, or if it's really well-written documentation becomes available, that makes the self-study process much easier, and I find it's much more scalable. Instructor-led training, I don't think scales very well, but if you have self-study, which could be online content, could be blogs, books, just documentation that's available, it becomes open to such a wider audience, and that dissemination of knowledge becomes incredibly valuable. Just the instructor training, it's very efficient, it's very tightly bundled. You get a lot of custom training to find efficiencies that would improve your abilities and allow you to ramp up your knowledge a lot faster, a lot quicker. My concern about the instructor-led training is it's limited scale, and I'm a huge fan of getting as much information out there to as many people as possible, and really pushing the scalability side of things.
So I'll counter your counter with, not everybody can do that. Not everybody can do the self-study, because it takes discipline, right? What I will also say,
it depends on the maturity level.
Yes.
So
yes,
yeah, that's the case here. I got triggered by something you said, Phil. When you learn new stuff, when I have to learn entirely new stuff, not something that I'm an expert in, then I really enjoy sitting in a class or have someone tell me how it works, because if I'm self-studying that, I have a tendency to I might go out of the wrong tangent, wrong direction. Whereas if I have a class, I'll be guided in the right direction. And once you get a maturity level that is good enough for me to climb farther up the mountain, then I can do what you're saying, Troy. So, and that's actually what I do, and I think we all do it. When we reach a certain level, we try to reach the expert level by digging into it ourselves.
Yep.
One of the things and I think we and I think most of our listeners would be expert in a specific field. For my part, if I get a challenge, I got a new oven. We got a new oven. That's really challenging, because that's an oven with a touch screen, and I give you there's so many things, and being an expert in Wi-Fi, being an expert in so many other things, I got really pissed off on this stupid oven, because I felt this. Oh, now I'm really down at the bottom level, and I didn't like that. So my wife took over. She read the manual, and she told me how to do it now. Now I'm on a maturity level where I can, now I'll try to experiment with that oven going forward. And I think that goes for learning in general. Attending classes, get a proper direction, try out on the internet to see if you can pick up new resources, build the systems, break the systems, and so on. Yes.
So a couple of things I want to come around to. First of all is the one that Troy said. You mentioned custom courses. Sometimes the problem is you want to learn how to do X, Y, and Z, but the course covers A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, X, Y, Z. Now, as a training company, we can do what in England we call bespoke classes or custom classes. So we can do a custom class for you focused on something. So the very first thing we say to you is, do you care about the exam? Because if you care about the exam, we've got to cover the material in the course and the exam. But if you just want to learn routing and OSPF, we can take a class that covers all the other things and focus more on the aspects of those things. And that's a custom class, okay? Now, the bad news is we aren't going to do that for you, Bob. Now, if Bob and 5 of your friends can come along, there's like a minimum number because of the development and the fine-tuning of that class. So, hey, can you do a custom class for me and my 20 friends? Absolutely. Can you do a custom class for me and my brother? Well, that's difficult because it's going to cost more, okay? So maybe when you're looking for a particular type of information for your team, talk to our training company, hopefully, ncexpert.com, plug. Talk to us about fine-tuning the class to your needs, absolutely. Now, the other point I want to get round to is something that Tor said, which I'm going to pause for dramatic effect now. Read the manual, all right? Little confession for you. We talked earlier that I just set up my Bitdefender box. It was the easiest thing in the world. I know ASA firewalls. I know Palo Alto firewalls. I know firewalls. How hard can it be, right? I plugged in my Bitdefender box, did whatever, doesn't work. Call support, okay? It needs a license. I called support, and support said, oh, okay, sure, I can fix it. They sent me a license, and it worked. Then I just happened to be sitting there waiting for the support guy to do something. I read the pamphlet that came with Bitdefender box. Step number 1, make sure you've set up your account before you continue, right? And the guy comes back and says, have you set up the account? And I was like, no. Oh, let's do that for you now, sir. And the guy was ever so helpful, but I'm sat there going, oh my gosh. I didn't read the manual, guys, because I know how to set up firewalls. And it could have saved me a lot of time, right? If only I just read. And it was like a little pamphlet of like, what, 4 sides. And step number 1, make sure you've set up your account before you continue. And I was like, yay, fixed it. Like you said earlier, Tor, you know, you said your wife read the manual and she taught you, because I come from the old days of IT support where the manual is put behind glass and, you know, in case of emergency, break glass, right?
Yes.
We don't want to read the manuals. Troy, what do you think?
Cheating, right?
Yeah, we treat the manual as cheating, yes. What do you think, Troy?
Yeah, so just thinking maybe take this conversation a little bit of a different direction there. We're talking about certifications and knowledge and self-study. The question is, what is the value of certification? What benefits do they bring? Yeah, and so I guess
if I can interrupt, so a quick poll, do you think they're valuable? I say yes. Troy?
I think that's such an open question. I don't see how you could not think they're valuable.
And Tor?
Absolutely.
So Troy, sorry to interrupt you. You're on a roll then. So tell us why they're valuable then, please.
Yes, so we talked about self-study, getting access to information that you gave the example. If you just want to accomplish X, Y, and Z, but you take a whole training program or an instructor-led class, or you read a book where it teaches you A through Z. Why, if you only care about X, Y, Z, or Z, why read all that extra fluff there? And this is kind of where the value, I think, of certifications lead to. If you just focus on the X, Y, Z, you miss out on a lot of different information, right? So if you're just trying to accomplish a single task and you have a lot going on and you need to move on to the next task, well, maybe, studying and investing the time in certification, maybe that's not the right approach for you. But if you're in the pursuit of knowledge and you want to expand your mind and learn different ways, products or systems, protocols, technologies can be used, so that you have that information that if you are presented with a challenge later on, a month, 6 months a year down the road, you have kind of that foundational knowledge where it wasn't immediately applicable at the time, but because you had to learn that knowledge as part of your certification pursuits, well, now you're increasing your level of knowledge, your level of exposure and experience. And so I think that provides a lot of value for the certifications. I also personally, I'm a self-confessed certification junkie. I really enjoy going down the certification path because it draws a line in the sand, right? I have to commit to a date to challenge that exam. I have to learn a bunch of material, and then I have to write an exam or complete some sort of test that proves or validates that I learned something, right? And there are a certain amount of flaws with different exams and formats, stuff like that, but it is some benchmark where I can prove to myself that, hey, all that investment that I just put in, that I actually learned something as a result of that. And that's one of the reasons I'm a big fan of certifications. What about you, Tor? What are your thoughts on the benefits of certification?
It's pretty much almost the same as you say there. For me, the benefit of certification, it's obvious. You can present to someone else that you have at least a certain amount of knowledge on a specific topic. Yes. But for me, I think, as you mentioned, the journey to getting the certification is actually the big prize you're getting.
That's a key.
Because and one of the things I've noticed is I'm aiming at a new certification and say, okay, I would like to do this. And when I get into the process, I really enjoy learning these new topics, and I'm getting amazed that this boring topic actually is pretty interesting, and I'm digging deeper and deeper into that. And as you say, Troy, you get some knowledge, you get some skills if you're doing lapping. You can use afterwards, and half a year, 1 year after, by magic, you got a task, you got a job, you got a gig where you actually can use the skills and the knowledge you learned by taking the journey towards the certification. So yes, I do agree with you, Troy. You get so much just by starting up the process of getting certification. And yes, it is nice to finish the journey by getting the certification. But for me, the most valuable part is actually the journey.
I think that's a key point, and I always tell people whenever they come on any CCIE classes that look, it is the journey that makes you the CCIE, that makes you the expert, not going into a room, sitting there for 8 hours, then leaving that room and being given a number. And I tell people, whenever we do the CCIE, I say you don't fail. You fail when you give up. We don't use the F word. The F word is fail. So if you don't pass on your first attempt, that's not a fail. That's not passing on your first attempt. I know a guy that passed on his 9th attempt. Okay, got a huge pay rise and now is VP of something. And the reason that he's VP isn't no one cares that you failed or you didn't pass 8 times. The old story, the guy or the gal who graduate bottom of the class from medical school, what do you call them? Doctor. The end. Doesn't matter. If you pass with flying colors, or if you just scrape a pass, you still call doctor. Okay.
But Phil, one point. You may call them doctor. I just don't call them my doctor.
So are you one of these people that walk?
Oh no, that's not funny.
Say, can I see your presentations? Well, one thing, couple of things I want to circle before I forget them. You guys mentioned, you want to do a training provider, you want to do a class. Call up the training provider and say, can you give me someone who will recommend your class, please? If they can't say yes, go find another training provider. Any excuses? Hey, I want you to come and install location the Wi-Fi in a warehouse for me. Okay. Number one, have you installed location in the warehouse? Give me a customer that's happy with your installation. Oh, well, yeah, thank you, bye-bye. You want them to say, sure, here's 15 customers, here's 3 customers, call anyone, they've said they'll happily vouch for us, okay? Second thing I want to mention is, we've kind of skirted around this. When you do any form of training, what do you guys think about having equipment or simulations to practice on? Is it easy? Can you become a CCIE just reading books, or do you need to actually start typing stuff? Troy, what do you think?
So for the CCIE type level, those advanced certifications, I don't think it's possible without hands-on exposure, access to the equipment. One word that you mentioned that kind of triggered me is I think you need real equipment. It doesn't have to be on-site real equipment. It could be remote lab gear, but simulators will not cut it for that level exam. You need to experience the messages when you enter commands that are invalid. You need the real bugs to appear. You need to experience that. Because that could be part of the experience, is understanding those limitations. That you definitely want to avoid simulations or emulators. You need to be on the real equipment for that level type of exam. But you do need the hands-on. That is critical. And to be successful at the CCI level, you need to be, Johnny on the fly with your CLI command speeds. If depending on which flavor of CCIE exam you're going down, but you need to be spot on. You can't be thinking about commands. It needs to flow out of your fingertips to be successful.
So I'm going to counter that. I think you also need hands-on experience with whatever level, even if you're doing introductory level. If you sit a CCNA and you do simulations, and then you get a job and someone says, here's my 2600 routers. Oh, I'm sorry, I only worked on 3600s or 3800s. I don't know 2600s. The point is, I think it's important that you get hands-on at all levels, is what I'll counter with. Tor, what do you think?
Definitely hands-on. You need to have hands-on. There's different approaches to learning, and the single person will learn by listening, reading, and getting hands-on, and it's all about getting the synapses built thicker and thicker, because you need to get some input from different kind of media. So you could say your eyes, your ears, your hands, and as you say, Troy, when you need to be you need to have kind of a reflex. Is it called that? Yes, right?
Reflex, yeah.
Reflexes. Then you need to be sitting and typing the same command thousand times. You need to see what happens on the screen, get the feedback, and the unconscious part of you will actually then learn the stuff, and you'll be faster and faster. So yes, definitely. And I agree with you, Phil, on the entry level also, hands-on is important. It is. And for my part, the way I learn, I read, and then I go, as I said, I build the lab, I build the system, and I break it. That's my approach.
So I found it very interesting. I'm going to try and lighten this up with the story now. I heard a story that the Chinese defenders, when they first came across the samurai from Japan, they thought they were magical, because the Chinese defenders would do a sword fight with the samurai, and it was as if the samurai knew what you were going to do. They tried every kind of attack, and the samurai countered and defended. And it turns out that the samurai spent countless hours every day sword fighting, and they got used to recognize that when you take a particular stance, they knew what type of attack was coming. And it's got nothing to do with magical samurai. They've spent thousands, you said thousands, and I think that's a key point. If you think to become a CCIE, you've got to spend hundreds, type the command in hundreds of times, it's more like thousands of times. If you spend thousands of hours doing something, even hundreds of hours, if you spend time doing it over and over again, it almost becomes a part of you. And you don't think to yourself, I need to type in the command to show something. You just do it. And there's a difference between believe in thinking and understanding and just doing. And I think that's a key point you raised there, Tor. Repetition, especially in CCIE, as you said, Troy, is very, very important. I'm aware of the time, and I just want to ask one more question. What is your opinion of customers' awareness of certifications? I asked this question because a couple of years ago, I've been meaning to get my CWNE for the longest time, and I eventually got round to it last year. What really prompted me was I've been doing wireless design for a long time. I've written courses on it and subject matter and things. I had a phone call from a gentleman that says, Phil, I've been given your name. Do you know how to design wireless networks? I said, I think I do. I don't want to be too pompous. Yes, I think I do. Another question, I've designed wireless networks and they work. That's a better question. Okay, he said, fantastic. I've got a customer that wants to pay someone urgently to review a wireless design they've got. Only thing is, are you a CWNE? I said, no, but I know how to design wireless networks. And this guy was like, I'm sorry, the mandate from the customer is they have to be CWNE. And the point was, he didn't care what experience you had or how many people you can give him as recommendations. He was using the certification as a guaranteed requirement of what he thought was needed. And I'll give you another scenario of somebody else told me that if you go and work in government over in Washington, D.C. area, a lot of government contractors will demand that you have a CCIE on your payroll. So certifications are, what I mean is to get the contract with the government, you need like a PhD, a master, or a CCIE. It's a requirement that you have a certain number of these types of people with the certifications to get, so the company you're working for can get the contract. Are you finding this is becoming more and more? Troy, are you finding that people are aware of the certifications more and more now?
Yeah, so just before we go into that, going back to your comments about the doctor, the person who finishes last in med school. They're still doctor. They have that designation of doctor. You know, it's a minimum defining threshold. It's somewhere where they can draw the line in the sand. Oftentimes I think about certifications like getting your driver's license. It qualifies you to a certain point where really it opens your eyes so that you can learn more, dive deeper. But maybe you guys have seen those competitions they have on TV. You know, the US's or, you know, Canada's worst driver, and they have these people drive a driving course, and they have their driver's license, but they're horrible drivers. There's no way you'd want them on the road. And so the same thing happens, right? So you could have CCIEs who could be like, you know, the world's worst drivers, that they meant that the minimal requirement. They passed the exam, and, you know, they've proven that they know something, but they're still, you know, on the show for being the world's worst driver. So it's a line in the sand there, but in terms of certification recognition and awareness, Cisco's been around a long time in the networking space. If you're in the IT community, there's a good chance, you know, you've heard of Cisco and you've heard of the CCIE. Unfortunately, I think on the wireless side of things, as much as we like to think wireless is a big slice of the pie in terms of the IT space, wireless is a very small sliver from what I've seen. You know, in the wireless community, we're all rah wireless, but wireless as a whole is quite small, which is interesting because I think it's one of the most popular access mediums that we have now going around today. So a lot of people know the term Wi-Fi. But the awareness, I think the brand recognition of CWNP is definitely not where I'd like to see it. A lot of the postings that I've seen, they'll call out, you know, vendor specific certifications like CCIE, and they'll say, and we want you to have a CWNP, right? Which is a reference to the organization, not a specific certification itself. So I think recognition, at least seeing CWNP called out on job requirements, job postings, I think is moving in the right direction. But I do think there's a little bit of lack of awareness. And part of the onus falls on us to you know, champion to our customers, clients, the community as a whole, to bring that brand awareness. Let's say, hey, when you ask for, so in your example, when someone asked you to review that design, Phil, one of the reasons they're asking for CWNE is because there is market awareness that when it's reviewed by someone with that level of knowledge, that they'll bring the skill sets, the best practices, and the bearing of information and experience to that design to say yay or nay that this design will be successful or not. So I think there's a lot of work we need to go down to see that improvement, but I think it's coming.
Cool, awesome. Tor, what about you? What's your perspective from Europe on that? Are certifications deemed important there?
Certifications are at least used to filter out candidates.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. You need to have something you can measure on, and there the certification is one of the parameters. And I will agree with you, Troy, that we have seen CCIEs that should have been sitting behind a desk, not touching any equipment. And they do no, but it really takes a lot of knowledge and skills to pass the high-end test, the CWNE, the CCIEs, and so on. So if you pass that marker, you actually can understand something here. You have a certain level, and you could always argue that a CCNP or a CWNA certified has more skills or knowledge in a certain area than a CCIE has. But in general, I would say companies sees that the CCIE, the CWNE, is kind of a guarantee that we have a certain level. And we all know that CCIEs can walk in water, right? You don't know the story?
Tell us, Tor.
MCSE, what was the novel? What was it called?
Was MCNE, wasn't it?
An MCSE,
a Novell certified.
A Novell certified, and a CCIE was sitting in a boat on a lake in Sweden, I guess, fishing, and sitting many hours. Sometimes nature calls, so the CCIE have to leave the boat, go to the forest or so, and he jumps off the boat and walks over the water, finish what he has to finish, and walks back to the boat. And now I have a challenge here because I have to say this in English. So the CNE, certified novel expert, yeah. The CNE also have to go into the forest, and he jumps out the boat, walks across the water, and finish and get back to the boat. And then the MCSE also needs to go to the forest, and he thinks these two highly skilled, highly certified guys are able to walk on water. I'm also highly certified, so I should also be able to walk on water. So he jumps out the boat, goes to the bottom, drowns, and what's it called? These now I'm ruining it now. Yeah, the NCE then asked the CCIE, didn't you tell him about the stepping stones? And the CCIE says, stepping stones?
What stepping stones?
Exactly. So that's how we know the CCIE.
That's an old joke, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
That's probably what MCSEs hate CCIEs.
I'm an MCSE also.
I was an MCSE from Windows NT4. Was that 10 years ago?
Yeah.
10 years ago?
Yeah. I think that's more.
Yeah.
That was the millennium before now.
The last millennium, yeah. I was an MCSE in the last millennium.
By the way, the CCIE labs are slowly opening again.
Cool.
There's some reopening dates in September for Beijing and for Brussels.
That's interesting.
But that's some information you can You can pick
China and
a,
Europe first. Okay.
yeah, of course, Europe makes sense in my world.
Gateway to the
Yeah,
world.
yeah. Good.
There's probably people listening to this going, what does a Canadian, a Danish guy, and a British guy know about life in America, right?
Nothing.
I live here.
I can't say I've been in 47 states, so I've seen things in America, not been living there.
There's no life, is there, at the moment, because we're all locked down on COVID. So, you know,
I'm a nature guy, so I think that's good. Now,
have you ever
that's a bad joke.
Seen the dog, like a dog or a cat will just stare out of the window? I found myself doing that now. I'm just sat there staring out the window, thinking about, oh, we used to be able to go for a walk in the park and go swimming and go for picnics. And I look down, the dog sat next to me, and I'm like, oh, this is sad. I know the dog feels, right?
It will be better eventually. It will.
I believe so, yes, eventually. We just got to keep on going. Okay, guys, I think we should call it there for today. So that was awesome. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Okay?
All right.
You guys. Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Bye.
I'm Troy Martin. You can find me on Twitter at TroyMart, the handle TroyMart. And our co-host, Phil Morgan, how can people reach out and get a hold of you?
You can find me on Twitter at CCIE5224. It's me.
All right. And cool. Thanks, Phil. And Tor Olson, how can people get a hold of you?
They can get hold of me at Twitter at the handle at 2RN1. So it's 2 Romeo November and the number 1.
Awesome. Awesome. All right.
Thanks,
guys.
Thanks, guys.
See you next time.
See you.
See you guys.